Hello and welcome to tonight's LOL Esports Roundup. We're going to cover the two series that took place this morning at Worlds 2023. They were eliminations, as well as preview tomorrow's two best of threes. So I'm 30-9 in predictions, went 2-0 again on the day, got both on the dot. First C9 Fnatic. Fnatic win 2-1. Noah was my MVP. Humanoid 12-12, 24, 30% of damage. Noah 18-5, 16. Eminez 13-10, 17, 26% of damage in the loss for Cloud9. Game 1, Cloud9 comes out firing. The Rumble top out of Fudge was disgustingly dominant. Absolutely put Oscarinen in. Actually, Oscarinen was like so far behind that even Blabber on a Jarvan solo killed him in the mid to late game. Eminez dominated Humanoid, solo killing him a couple times. It was, actually, he might have solo killed him in game 1, but he solo killed him more in game 2 again. Definitely a dominant game out of Cloud9. Honestly, Cloud9, very feisty in this series. It was a close one. I think it went back and forth outside of I guess games 2 and 3 were a little bit back and forth. Game 1, I thought Fudge was just so dominant. Trimby tried to make things happen on the Rakan to keep the team in it. He can only do so much. Humanoid inting a bit, and Oscarinen struggling didn't help. Razork started coming through in the second and third game, the Jarvan being a big pick for him. He really was able to try and find opportunities while Blabber was on a Talia doing what he did. So it was one of those situations where carry-oriented jungler versus facilitator. And Blabber did get the gold lead, but in the end did not do enough with it to win the game. Where Noah started coming through in team fights in the mid to late game. And then in game 3, Noah was the difference maker. Thankfully, they had those damage charts and key team fights at well-timed moments that actually could, oh, wow, that player is dealing that much damage in this team fight. That's important because it seems like sometimes at Worlds right now, it'll be like an 8K gold deficit, 8K gold diffy, and they're like, oh, look at this damage chart. And it's like, well, no shit, the team that's winning is going to deal more damage. But when it's a close fight, who is dealing the damage? Who is making the impact? Obviously, CC does matter, and we factor that in. Trimby did play very well, actually, in this entire series. But Noah not dying in team fights, especially Game 3. He ended up with double-digit kills on the Aphelios, and that was really a big difference. Like Berserker and Noah, very similar players. I went over this a couple times in this Worlds, actually, that in my opinion, now Berserker is a few years younger than Noah, which I think is important to bring up. But they both play a more passive Korean 80 carry style. We see Route doing that in CBLOL. Players do this where they're not in the LCK. They don't quite have that aggression necessary, and they end up in other regions, and they're good because they win with hands in the mid to late game team fights that make the difference, but in the grand scheme of things, when they play against players from their own region, they are a little bit outclassed. And like I said, Berserker is still very young. I did not see as much development as I would have liked in this, but that's in this Worlds, but that's beside the point. Sven inting a bit. Trimby definitely got the better of him. Eminez, like I said, solo killed Humanoid a few times in this series. I would say laning, Eminez flipped heads in this one. Hell, he had a positive KDA. Humanoid, dealt a ton of damage in Game 3, which was clutch. But Noah, in the key team fights around the Drake and the Baron, was the guy. Staying alive, dealing damage, and that's all it comes down to, right? And Cloud9 and Fnatic, 2 seats from the LCS, LEC were close, so I don't think there's a big gap there regionally. Now, Mad Lions and Weibo. Weibo win 2-0. Light was my MVP. Light, 19-3-15, 29% of damage in the win. Crisp, 3-4-33. I think you can make a case for him being MVP as well. So the bot lane went 22-7 and 48 combined. Karzi, 5-8-3, 33% of damage in the loss. Game 1, very close. Weibo flipped tails in that one. However, Hilly flipped tails in this series. His alley was good at times in game 1, but then he just started inting his face off. His Soraka, he inted his face off in game 2. And the bot lane could not keep up with Light and Crisp. Light and Crisp set the tone in game 1 with Callista Renata. And then in game 2, I believe Light had an Aphelios, and Crisp may have had a Renata again. That's a little irrelevant, but dominant. Absolutely dominant in the bot lane. In my opinion, I said this during the year, I thought that Weibo's strongest spot actually was the bot lane. I had Light and Crisp in my top 3 All Pros, I think. And some people always said, "Oh, but what about Weiwei or Xiaohu and this or that?" No, I felt the bot lane was huge, and I thought in this series they were huge. Xiaohu, honestly, against Niski of all people, like Niski solo killed him in game 1. What the fuck is that? Niski got the better of him in lane, and that happened the last time these guys played against each other. But in the end, Xiaohu's able to just make things happen. Weiwei executing a great dive in the bot lane in this series in the early game to actually set the tone in bot lane. Like I said, Light and Crisp doing work, but then Weiwei going down there to say, hey, this bot lane is where we're going to really find some advantages. Topside, Chasey outclassed by the Shy. The Shy flipped heads on Aatrox both games. Honestly, it was the Aatrox K'Sante matchup both matches, and the Shy got the better of him. It's just simple as that, but that's not a shock, right? Elyoya went even in this one, I think 6-6-4. Looking at this, Elyoya versus Weiwei is probably the matchup that's the closest, and the one that you kind of need to like maybe put Elyoya on Talia or things like that and just hope he 1v9s. But he couldn't 1v9 in this one. The Shy ended up dealing like almost as much damage as Light, but the KP wasn't there. Very similar to his Rumble game earlier on in this Worlds, where he led the team in goal in damage, but didn't actually have all that many assists and things like that. So Weibo dominant. Light was my MVP. Like I said, his Callista game was disgusting. You can make a case for Crisp as well. I think that those two are the difference makers. And 80 carries dominating the day in this one. Now, sneak peek for tomorrow, D+ in GAM. I think that's loser goes home as well. Cloud9 Fnatic. Maybe Cloud9 Fnatic wasn't loser goes home. Maybe it wasn't. I could be wrong on that one. Because D+ GAM definitely is loser goes home. No, all 3 are probably loser goes home. KT, LNG not. And then the final two series on Saturday are not loser goes home. So D+ GAM, nothing to go off of here. Canyon and Levi have not played against each other. Who knows if Levi's going to play? Apparently he is dealing with an illness. We have J-Beast in our Discord. He's part of the VCS English crew, or at least is in their Discord often. He's our VCS aficionado, and he's been sharing things that Levi is ill or was ill. And if that's the case, GAM are completely screwed. It's already lopsided, and without Levi at 100%, holy moly, that is a diffie. KT, LNG, they've never played against each other, but their players have crossed paths. So let's go over this. Junglers, LCK Spring 2020, Cuz with T1, Tarzan with Griffin. Cuz would go 2-4-9, Tarzan 5-3-3. They would split games 1-1. At 15 minutes on average, Cuz had a 20 gold lead, Tarzan a couple camps ahead and 676 XP, so it was a classic case of gold is even, but Tarzan was making things happen and benefiting from his team making things happen, Rift Heralds, turrets, things like that. BDD Scout, definitely a big series to look at. Worlds 2021 semifinals between Gen G, EDG. EDG would win that one 3-2. BDD would go 12, 15, and 27 in that one. Scout 25, 6, and 24. And in laning phase, BDD actually had a lead over the 5 games, up 40 gold, 3 CS, and 183 XP. So slight diffie there. When you look at it, I believe Scout was ahead in 1 of the 5 games. So laning-wise, there isn't a big difference between BDD and Scout, at least in that meta. And then lastly here, we have Aiming and Gala. They played in LPL Spring 2021. Aiming would win 2-1 in this one on BLG, as Gala was with RNG. Aiming went 17-7 and 22 with a 38% damage share. Gala 16-5-11 and 35% damage share. We don't have laning stats for the LPL, unfortunately. So that's going to be a close one. Obviously, that's a marquee matchup, as you have the LCK 3 seed and the LPL 3 seed duke it out. So that's it for the roundup. Thank you for watching. If you liked the video, like it. Subscribe to the channel for daily League of Legends content. Follow me on Twitter, join the Discord, become a YouTube supporter, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.